In Takamichi's first display of real tenacity, he's defending his ideals and purpose for going back in time to save Hina, and this display of tenacity wasn't in vain because the bum that was beating him up was none other than a part of Tokyo Manji gang, and none other than the vice president Draken, and the president Mikey showed up to farm some aura and save Takamichi from certain death. But Draken didn't even need to be told to attack. The bum, it was merely an instinct because he wasn't bowing to Mikey. So we see first and foremost, Draken's dedication and respect for Mikey. But Mikey didn't want to leave without setting an example and getting out some anger for that bum that started the fighting rings. While Draken agreed and thinks about Toman's reputation overall from this sad display of power, the next day Draken and Mikey actually showed up to Takamichi's school, not caring about any etiquette, just showing up, dropping some kids, and practically forcing Takamichi to come with them. But Draken doesn't really care about Takamichi, but Mikey does, so he will respect Mikey's decision, and he won't leave his side, showing a brotherly type of bond than a fearful leader type. So, after Hina showed up, she wanted to protect Takamichi. She mistook Draken and Mikey as being the ones that beat him up. But Takamichi, and she slapped Mikey, which led to Draken stopping her and threatening her, which really showed us, his love for Mikey. He's willing to even hurt a woman, or a girl at that, for his honor and protection. And our crybaby Takamichi wasn't going to let that slide. He looked Draken in his eye and threatened him, which actually impressed Draken more than it pissed him off. And Mikey dropped in anyway, so it was all good. Draken even tells Takamichi that it's rare to find someone that will fight knowing they will lose because they won't give up on something that's admirable. With this display, Mikey reminds, of everyone of his, dead other brother, and wants Takamichi to join the Tokyo Manji gang. So pretty much in this chapter, where the bystander girl died in a rival Miller gang Mobius strike, the father was rightly angry, seeking justice for his little girl's death. It was only Draken, that was able to actually have the emotional discipline to understand the father's feelings of losing his little girl to a bunch of thugs. And he forced Mikey to bow and to calm down, to actually apologize in his actions for his enemy's actions. This only filled his actions to take an action to make a difference. So pretty much, in this flashback, we see Draken as a middle schooler, even dominating here and making his presence known, and even getting a tattoo on his skull to show his dedication to his strength and position, and vow to take on the strongest. That's taking out high schoolers known as, Mikey. But the funny thing is, once he met him, Draken took him to his former leader. That got him taken out in flash because Mikey took him out in an instant. And by instinct, and Draken was taken aback because this was the first time he saw this display of strength and actually made a friend. One thing that's admirable about Draken, from my point of view, is how level-headed he is, and he doesn't simply just follow the orders Mikey gives him. He's his own man in all regards and isn't afraid to go against Mikey if he thinks he's wrong. So despite that fact, he will still protect Mikey regardless of what disagreement he has with him. Mikey put himself in harm's way to put down Osanai, who was being a sore loser after Mikey knocked him out for invading Toman and doing unspeakable things. Draken delivers a chilling declaration telling the Mobius gang if they ever try anything like this again, he will track them down and end them himself. And now, because of their actions, he's forcing them to be affiliated with Toman in order to survive. But what really threw things into chaos was when Pa stabbed Osanai in the back and surrendered himself to the cops, which really split up Draken and Mikey, and their outlook on that result was temporary. So by the time they actually forgave each other, we see the effects of Pa's choice, which both Draken and Mikey having noble reasons for being at odds with each other. But although Draken and Mikey made up, Draken's life, he was still in danger, and Takamichi, as always, is giving it his all to change the future. But there's only so much he can do, and it turns out Kiyomasa still holds a grudge to Draken from now, and from how he, treated him in the beginning, Draken's introduction. But now he wants to kill him, which is pretty beyond belief, no doubt. So even though Draken knew Pei wanted him dead for not agreeing with Mikey to pay for Pa's bail, respecting his choice to not only get arrested but to surrender to it all. So once Draken was confronted by his friend and comrade Pei, who was seeking revenge, he didn't hold it against him at all, and he would take him head on like a man. But since Pei knew he couldn't defeat Draken, he got him jumped from behind, putting Draken in a precarious situation, causing Tommy to be in a dire situation to save him from Pei's betrayal. But while the battle between Toman and Mobius was underway, Draken was doing his best to be useful, with all his injuries he sustained. But inside the chaos, Kiyomasa made his way to Draken to stab him, attempting to kill him. During all the chaos, Mikey sees that Draken got stabbed and told Takemichi to get Draken to safety while he stayed back. But which of the following, Takemichi had to defend Draken no matter what. And the thing about Draken that's admirable here is that while he's bleeding out and injured, he still tells Takemichi to run, and he will stay back, knowing he may die, because that's the type of man he is, through and through. So after the fight, it was the grace of God that Takemichi was able to make it through with friends coming in to help, and the main fight with Toman and Mobius was wrapping up. We get a tease from Hama that there's going to be an even greater threat in the immediate future. For a while, Draken is getting rushed to the hospital and Mikey being in hot pursuit. But after Draken was saved in the original timeline, we see in the alternate timeline Draken is actually on death row for murder, and Takemichi was trying to get answers for what happened, and Draken deep down was still the same admirable big bro he always has been, but he has turned into Kisaki's lapdog, doing his bidding, and the only thing Draken regrets is not killing Kisaki. So, in that timeline, while Draken was in prison, we see Takemichi visit him again with a new revelation, while Draken explains that the entire Valhalla gang was built for Mikey to run with Kisaki, being the mastermind behind it all. And on October 31st, known as the Bloody Halloween, Mikey killed Kazutora because he killed his older brother. Even if it wasn't ignorance, and the cherry on top was Baji ended up dying with his heart never leaving Toman. All of his actions was to take out Kisaki. But as Draken was saying it was a catalyst for Mikey alter ego to manifest, and he became the dark Mikey everybody feared. But we do see back in the present, Draken is trying to talk to Kazutora to find some reason for why he's acting out in the manner, with us seeing Draken loyalty even to a friend turn enemy, with both him and Mikey not wanting the war, but it seeming like it can't be avoided, even with a plea or any type of dialogue. So by the time the day came, it was all over for talk, and it was just time for action. And when both the gangs gathered around, we see before the fight actually started, none other than Draken was declaring the winning terms, which was to take Baji back. When they win, nothing more, nothing less. Kazutora didn't really like that because he was left out of it, in my opinion, and lashed out, attacking the mediator and starting the brawl instead of a clean 5v5. So during the course of the battle, Toman was losing morale and heavily outnumbered, and Draken was forced to be on the defensive until none other than Takemichi got everybody's morale up by being the weakest yet most determined to fight no matter what, which really caused Draken to understand he don't need to be defensive, but he can finally be on the offensive, and actually takes out an entire platoon of Valhalla all on his own, even claiming it was a warm-up before his fight with Hama. Draken is the epitome of the reliable general. Being able to finally unleash his might, Draken sent Hama hurling back into the stack of cars about 20 feet, which surprisingly not only did Hama block the attack, but actually got right back up. All while this was happening, Mikey was getting jumped by Kazutora and his comrades, which really threw off Draken's concentration, allowing Hama to get the advantage over Draken temporarily. Draken's heart, is his still greatest weapon and his weakness when it comes to protection, with him never being able to be cold-hearted towards his loved ones, especially Mikey in particular. So, after the results of the Bloody Halloween, it is shown that in the current timeline, Kazutora wasn't killed because of Baji's loyalty to Mikey, and Toman with us seeing Mikey losing his murderous eyes when he sees the charm that started it all. Kazutora took blame for it all and ended it getting up, about 10 years, with Draken and Takemichi visiting him and giving him hope, sending a message from Mikey that he will always be family. So when we cut to the next scene with Draken, he's bringing Takemichi to the brothel. That turns out to be his home because he doesn't have parents, which is a really good explanation on why he's the most mature of the group. Pretty much forced to be that way, with the uncomfortable truth being Emma is a prostitute at such a young age, knowing no other life besides that. However, everything that's pressured the Draken is on his wall, and that's Toman and nothing else, alongside with him and Emma having a sibling type of bond. We find out why Draken sees her as a sister, because it's Mikey's half-sibling, and since Draken considers Mikey like a brother, they're all family in his eyes, since he doesn't have anybody related to him by blood. Without Mikey and Toman, Draken would be all alone and purposeless, which is the worst thing for a character like Draken to face. Total isolation. So you can't blame the man when he found out Takemichi was beat up by the leader of the Black Dragons. Draken wasn't in the mood to let anything slide, and was really angered for Takemichi in fulfilling his role as the vice president during the meeting. And when it comes down to backup, all you ever need is Draken and Mikey, because right before Mitsuya joined Takemichi to fight Taiju, he sent an alert to them, which was the right call. Draken would never let them down, and having Mikey showing up seals the deal. Now it's just a countdown until rescue. So pretty much, guys, as the bell was about to sound for midnight on Christmas night, Taiju had the upper hand, and everybody was exhausted when they collectively heard Mikey's bike outside, which means while Mikey came in to fight Taiju and spending Christmas night with his buddies, Draken is outside taking care of 100 of the top Black Dragon members. Mikey, for the first time in the series, was challenged to show the real dog inside of himself, and the result was shivering, with Taiju being knocked out immediately after one kick. And even when he recovered, Draken defeated 100 men in less than a few minutes, and did it swiftly when nobody noticed until Taiju was screaming for backup in desperation, only for Draken to ask if everything's done inside already, not showing a morsel of sweat or of any concern. So by the time New Year's hit everybody, they was in high spirits, and Mikey called for a meeting with Draken leading it, with us having Hakai tell the truth to the gang. With the second thing being Takemichi will have Ino and Koko under his command from the Black Dragons, and Mikey realizing that Kisaki betrayed them all and was fired on the spot, which really caused Kisaki to lose control and freak out. With all his efforts crumbling before his eyes, he even was desperate enough to approach Mikey, which Draken stopped, which then caused Hama to defend Kisaki. But then, after that conflict, Draken ended up ending the meeting. The next time we see Draken, he was surprising Takemichi with the surprise of a custom bike that Mikey's brother wanted to work on before he died. Draken especially sees the growth of Takemichi and how much more impact Takemichi had on morale and on themselves, to be quite frank. So by the time Takemichi thinks his mission is over, he decided to go back to the president. Before he left, he told the guys Baji's last words to be remembered and to cherish their goal and to stay on the right course. But man to man, Takemichi was sent into the worst possible future. Oh boy, the worst possible future. With Mikey becoming the most evil he's ever was, killing every single Toman admin in a brutal way. And we see before Mitsuya and Draken was killed, they asked Mikey for Takemichi to leave the game because they was going in a terrible direction. And then Mikey killed them. But in Mikey's mental health break, he wanted to end it all by Takemichi's hand, but Mitsuya planted the seed in Mikey's head before he got killed that Takemichi would come back to see him, and it would seem like he traveled back in the past because of his behavior. But when Mikey was presented with the honesty in Takemichi's eyes, he couldn't deny the real reality. He craved a reality to go back and fix things. So in the flashback, we see how Draken and Mitsuya met way back in the beginning before Atonement, with us seeing how Mitsuya and Draken related on being the ones to grow fast because of family or lack thereof. So once Draken seen the graffiti Mitsuya did on the dragon tattoo, he was enthralled, and there was a pact, and it was sealed at that moment. But they both decided to get the tattoo at the same time, and it was that decision to follow Draken because of his character and to be a responsible big brother and never to run away again from his responsibilities. So in the current timeline, the Toman's gang has been getting raided by the Tenjuku gang, ran by Kisaki, and we see Draken holding a meeting to get a grasp of the peerless situation. So after some time, Draken ended up telling Takemichi about Izana's real identity and the origins of the Black Dragon, all while he takes care of Mikey, even in the subtle ways. So when Takemichi finds out Mikey ended up having more trust in Izana more than Draken, it was alarming. But the truth is, Izana turned out to be Mikey's half-brother through Emma, so the connection could be explained that way. So when the gang was formed, Draken was warned by the remnants of the 9th generation Black Dragons that there will be a live on saying that there's beef against Toman started with Izana, Mikey's older brother, and it called into question everything we know so far, everything. So by the time a meeting is called over the Black Dragon, the situation was actually horrible, with most captains being wiped out. So before war was started with the Black Dragons, Draken was completely serious in understanding the strength of the adversary, showing concern and stress for one of the few times outside of something directly harming Mikey. But the next time we see Draken isn't under happy circumstances. It's actually after he finds out Emma died by Kisaki's hands, with Mikey being the last one to see her alive alongside Takemichi. But a lot of his anger and misery over her death really isn't towards Mikey or anybody else, but it's really towards himself. He lost the love of his life and wasn't there to help her, and him being the man that he is, the big bro type, to everyone failing and protecting somebody he loves. So he beats up Mikey and continues to beat him up. He's really beating him up himself. And there's a lot of death at this point with the gang and a lot of things that went wrong so far. So the only person at the time that can get Mikey and Draken out of the state of depression and guilt was none other than Hina. And she did it by revealing the truth, that Takemichi traveled from the future and it knows all their deaths, all the dates, and it explains why he fights so desperate all the time and he never gives up. So with that new revelation, Draken came to the rescue alongside Mikey, and Draken is ready to throw hands with him, needing some outlet for his anger, and who was any better than the culprit himself, while actually believing Takemichi came from the future and is just dedicating him and Mikey to Takemichi's mission. So when the battle ended and Tenjiku lost, Mikey had the entire situation handled. Everything was tamed and Kisaki was cornered until Hama came in clutch to save Kisaki. At the last minute, with us seeing Draken take Takemichi and be in hot pursuit filled with anger to avenge Emma at any cost, with us realizing that Draken was fully aware back when Takemichi saved his life, and somebody gotta get a medal for Hama because he'd be helping Kisaki like his life depends on it. But now it's a 1v1 with Draken versus Hama, which actually drags itself out to no winner, clearly. Draken clearly is the stronger one, but Hama's resilience is truly zombie-like. Perfect for stalling, which was Kisaki's best bet, but it was all in vain for Hama. When they decided to have a funeral for Emma, Draken was truly heartbroken. He was truly heartbroken. And he really felt responsible for Emma's death, even though he was powerless to stop it. It's just, he's the type of guy, it's just the type of guy Draken is. He will always be the burden wearer, the big bro that carries all the weight on himself. But thankfully, to Draken's dismay, will be losing all that burden he carries because Mikey decided to disband Toman. While they're all at their peak in their status and power, with us seeing Mikey wants to have the best future possible after understanding the possible future and the past future is prevented because of Takemichi. So the best course of action, in his eyes, was to shut it all down. And Draken respects and follows Mikey and understands his decision, unlike the other captains that don't want to lose their leader in the gang itself. But in the present, after 12 years, Takemichi returns to the future to be a groom at a wedding, none other than Pa-Chen's wedding. When we see every captain is alive and Toman for the most part, with Draken and Ino running a bike shop together, there seems to be peace, but the story about Mikey running a restaurant is a little fishy, with the suspicion being he's running a gang by himself. So when Takemichi went to confront Draken about Mikey, he was told the truth, which was Mikey and him parted ways 12 years ago, after Takemichi went back to the future. And now the leader of the most infamous gang in history, Bolton, is Mikey himself. So it wasn't so surprising when the Toman founding members went back to the Musashi Shrine where they all put items in for the time capsule. Mikey wasn't there, which was a sting considering it was his idea and promise. But when Draken opened up his capsule, he put a picture of Toman in there to always remember what he loved and cherished, and he admitted that he didn't want Mikey to end the gang, even though at the meeting 12 years ago he fully supported it, and it was the only thing he reassured himself with was Emma will always be with him. Because the loss of Toman was everything to him in every possible way, but at least he will always have her in his heart. So 2 years into the future, Mikey made by disbanding Toman, Draken, and Takemichi. I'm talking about Mikey, with us finding out Draken knows Mikey chose the darker side, the dark path, right? And isn't clueless about it all. And using his words, they all are respectable people now and not delinquents. Until South, one of the three deities in the Civil War era in Japan, he wants none other than Draken to join him. Even being persistent, asking him multiple times, and each time getting denied. And from the looks of it, he shares the same energy as Taiju, punch first, ask questions later type. Even though we know Draken isn't no slouch, he was getting throttled by South, pretty much getting low death by one of the three deities, getting defeated for the first time in the series. But just because he got knocked down doesn't mean he wouldn't get back up. And now, this time after all the monsters showed up, that old engine Draken has is warming up out of retirement. So Draken did what he does best in the ore farm, and he hit South and sent him flying in the air, with him both going into the air for the first time in this night. The first time in this fight. But right before things got interesting, the cops were showing up, so they had to scatter. But not before we find out Draken is secretly a part of Brahman and wants to bring Mikey back to his senses, while Brahman wants to destroy the gang itself because their influence and actions are detestable, which prompts Takemichi to join Brahman for the sole purpose of saving Mikey alongside Draken. But after 2 years, all the girls that lived in the brothel moved on, and there's a whole new set of girls living with Draken. But what stayed consistent is his photos from Toman. So even after Mikey assaulted all of them to make them, hate him, pushing them to live a normal life and to not even think about the world of being a delinquent, Draken couldn't just walk from his brother like that without a fight. And Takemichi confirmed to him Mikey's dark impulse he can't control, which solidifies Draken's decision to pursue Mikey by any means necessary. So while Draken was out, Anupi heard a terrible rumor that Takemichi was going to be killed, so Draken started to hurry towards Takemichi. And it turns out Takemichi was going to be killed by a group of thugs with a gun, with us thinking the visions that Takemichi been getting was to save Tsunji. But because of that, who ended up getting shot was none other than Draken. So after the thugs, we see Draken talking to Takemichi in an oddly final tone, almost like he was leaving a last impression. And we see why. It's because, like always, Big Bro Draken was there to support and protect Takemichi, and wanted to leave his will to Takemichi to save Mikey no matter what. And it doesn't want Mikey to cause, too much trouble. And even admits to, back in elementary school, he would lose fights all the time and stare into the sky and find peace in that way. But he understands that Mikey never felt defeat, and the burden that must carry is extreme. And all he wants to do is lighten that burden for Mikey because he loved him. And ever since Takemichi came into his life, he saved his life more than once. So Draken himself had no regrets giving his life to Takemichi and fully leaving Mikey in Takemichi's hands. So in Draken's final moments, he was thinking back to the first year the gang was formed and reflecting on the naivety of them all and still thinking, like kids and feeling on top of the world. And he loved every minute of it because Toman was Draken's family, his everything. So of course, in his dying moments, that was what filled his spirit. And now he can rest with Emma forever.
Penny X.